Hey everybody, this is GGB co-host Poppers, and it's time for college basketball upset of the day, Sunday edition. I got my Saturday pick. So since there's so many Saturday games, we're gonna go over what happened by conference. So let's start with the Big 12. There are two important Big 12 games yesterday. Baylor was playing Texas Tech, and Baylor ended up winning this game, which puts them at 5-0 in conference, putting them at 12-0 overall. Texas Tech fell from the third seeding in the Big 12 to the fourth seed after the loss behind one named Kansas. Now, Texas had the chance to crumble here. Kansas State, they played Kansas State. A loss would put them at 5-2, and while not behind Kansas quite yet, it would definitely close the gap a little bit. Fortunately for Texas, they ended up winning. Actually, it would have been the same. They would have had 4-2 in conference, so they would have the same conference record, but they wouldn't end up losing the 2 seed thanks to overall record. So luckily, they ended up winning this one. This put Kansas State at 1-5, still very much in the 9th place in the Big 12. Thankfully for them, Iowa State is worse. The Big 10 was a little bit interesting, to say the very least. Let's start with the game that I successfully picked, Ohio State, Illinois. And I remember when looking at this game after I recorded the video, I looked at all these predictions from the supposed experts at CBS Sports. I'm like, they probably know more than me. I'm just a kid that watches basketball in his spare time. I love college basketball, but I'm not an expert, right? Wrong, Eli. GGB is a legend at picking college basketball upsets. And, the reason why is because they don't like to pick upsets. And they just never have faith that an upset will happen. That's the fun part about college basketball upsets of the day. There might be no upsets, but when there are, there's fun ones. And I picked them. So, I picked Ohio State to beat Illinois in an upset, and that's what ended up happening. Although it was in controversial fashion, it seemed like Ohio State stepped on the line that would have given the Illinois team the ball back, down by 2 points with, I think, 15 seconds left. So it would have definitely made it more interesting. But nonetheless, Ohio State ended up winning this one, pushing them to the 4th spot in the Big 10, which is very, very exciting for this Ohio State team. Now, on the other side of things, Michigan became one of the first undefeated teams to lose of the 3. They ended up losing. Michigan ended up losing to Minnesota. This pushed Minnesota up a little bit into what would be right now the 7 seed in the Big 10. I believe they were 8 before, but they passed Indiana. Oh, no, I think they had the same record. Now, I think they're in the same spot, but if Purdue loses today to Penn State, then in fact, Minnesota would end up passing them and would hold the 6th spot in the Big 10. Now, that's all that really happened on the other side of things. And by the way, if Iowa wins tomorrow, that puts them at 6-1 in conference. If Iowa wins today, that will put them at 6-1 in conference as well to tie Michigan, but Michigan would still have the better record, so that's what would happen. So, Tennessee played Vanderbilt today, and they pretty much blew them out, which put them at 4-1 in conference instead of the 3-1 they were at. They were right behind Mississippi State, but unfortunately for Mississippi State, they were not helped out with a Vanderbilt win. Vanderbilt ended up losing, pushing Tennessee to the 3 seed in the Big 10 behind Alabama and LSU. Now, on the other hand, Missouri played Texas A&M today. Texas A&M really gave them pretty much all they could handle for about a half, and then they ended up crumbling. Missouri proved that they were still a pretty good basketball team, deserving to be in the top 25, pushed them to 2-2 in conference, and really moved them up a decent amount. Right now, they're between Florida and South Carolina. South Carolina losing their first SEC game today. On the ACC side of things, some crazy stuff happened with everyone in the top. So, if you didn't know, right now, heading into the game against Virginia, Clemson was at the 4 spot with a chance to take the 1 seed if things went right. On the other hand, things went terribly wrong for Clemson. Clemson ended up losing in a pretty much destruction by Virginia. Now, on the other hand, Clemson fell to 3-2 in the ACC, which made them fall from 4 to 9 in the ACC, which shows you how close the ACC is right now, and it's going to be interesting to say the very least moving forward. Teams can fall like that. It's really that quick. You could be, if things went right for Clemson, they could have been the 1 seed. Things went terribly wrong for Clemson, they're the 9 seed. That's how quickly things can change in the ACC. So, you gotta watch your back. Now, on the other hand, Virginia won, which would have put them in second place if Louisville had won today. But unfortunately for Louisville, they in fact lost to Miami. So, that means Virginia now holds the lead in the ACC, the number 1 seed. If the season was to end today, Virginia would win the ACC conference. Virginia Tech right now has moved from 3 to 2 without even playing. They played today. If they win, that puts them at 5-1 record. And I would still keep them out of first place. They still have to hope for a Virginia loss, but I do believe they play them at some point. So Virginia Tech is very much still in the hunt for this thing, as you will. Louisville won. As I mentioned, that bumped them from the 1 seed. That Louisville lost, which bumped them from the 1 seed to the 3 seed. On the other hand, Miami went from the 3rd to last team in the ACC to the 5th to last team in the ACC, passing the likes of Syracuse. Thanks to Syracuse's loss today to Pitt. So, in the Big East, only one big game happened today. Now, Creighton was sitting at that 2 spot. This was one of the most interesting games of the day, in my opinion. If you were watching the game, it was one of the biggest upsets of the year. If you look at the college basketball, the spread heading into the game, Creighton was favored by 9 points. So it's one of the bigger upsets of the year so far in this thing. So Creighton was actually leading this game by 13 points with about 7.5 minutes remaining. It looked like they had it locked up. But then Butler fought back, sent it to overtime, and ended up beating Creighton in overtime. So what that did for Butler is it really just boosted it up 1 spot with a 3-5 record. Now, you're really hoping for some stuff to happen with Providence so you can pass them, Butler. Unfortunately, even if they do lose their next game, they still have a better record than you, so that would hold the tiebreaker as well. Unless Butler played Marquette and beat them. I don't believe that happened, though. Now, on the other hand, it would really hurt Creighton, because Creighton is really in a logjam at the top of the Big East with Villanova, UConn, Creighton, and Seton Hall, with Xavier really right there in the mix as well. So you really don't want to lose games, because you could easily get past, and that's what happened today. Creighton lost to Butler, and UConn was able to pass them. Luckily for Creighton, they have the better record than Seton Hall and have beaten Seton Hall. So they're not going to, any way you look at it, the tiebreaker is going to go Creighton's way. So it's going to be interesting moving forward, but that was a big, big loss by Creighton today. Big upset. And then, as many of you know, Gonzaga beat St. Mary's. But on Sunday, we have some very interesting basketball games, and Adelaide's very excited. Let's look at the 11 o'clock game. Number 5, Iowa, which is sitting at 11-2, travels to Northwestern, which is 6-5. Now, Northwestern has lost about 4 straight at this point. So, it's kind of important that they get this win. So, Garza leads major conference players in 30-plus games at 6 and points at 359. Right now, Iowa's favored by 9.5 points. And let me explain to you what could happen in the Big Ten with a win. Now, an Iowa win would put them at 6-1 in conference, the same in-conference record as Michigan does. Unfortunately for them, Iowa has played 1 more game for them, so instead they have an 11-2 record instead of Michigan's 11-1 record. So the tiebreaker would go to Michigan in that instance. But a win here today would keep them very much in the race and deep in the race for that 1 seed in the Big Ten. Now, a win today by Northwesterns would bump them to a 4-4 record. That would put them ahead of Indiana. So they would hop 1 spot in the rankings. So it's going to be interesting any way you look at it. The chances are that Northwestern, if they pull off the upset today, could get in the top half of the Big Ten, which is very important if you're looking at it. The top 5 teams right now are Michigan, Iowa, Wisconsin, Ohio State, and Illinois. All of them are ranked in the top 25, and then Minnesota also. So in the top 7, 6 of them are ranked, Purdue being the only one that is not ranked at this point, which is really weird because I really do believe they should be ranked because they're playing some really great basketball right now. So, Northwestern, Indiana, Rutgers, Michigan State, and Maryland all are fighting for their playoff lives right now. A win here by Northwestern, you can have an Iowa win on your resume. That would be huge for the Wildcats. So, it's definitely important for the Big Ten moving forward. Now, on the other side of things, we have at 1 o'clock, UCF, which is sitting at 3-4, travels to Houston, which is 10-1. Now, this is on ESPNU, and Houston's favored by 13.5. So let's explain what this means in the American Conference. Now, right now, Houston sits with a 5-1 record. A win today would put them at 6-1, and they'd be 2 games ahead of the next closest team, which is Wichita State. On the other hand, a UCF win would bump Houston down to 5-2, and Wichita State would be within range. With a win the next time they play, they would take the lead in the American. A UCF win would also bump UCF up 1 spot. Right now they're 3rd to last in the conference with a 1-3 in conference record. A win today would put them at, actually it would boost them to 2-3. A 4-4 record might be considered, I think it might be considered better than a 3-3 record. And I believe they would, I think they've played Temple and lost to Temple. So never mind. I think Temple holds the tiebreaker right now. So if they get the win over East Carolina, they move to 2-3 in conference, and they pass East Carolina for that spot. So if UCF really wants to keep their playoff hopes alive, a win today would be very crucial and helpful to meeting those ends. And then finally, at 5 o'clock, we have number 20 Virginia Tech traveling to Wake Forest. Now, if Virginia Tech was to win, which is in all likelihood what's probably going to happen since Wake Forest is in fact last in the conference in the ACC. If Virginia Tech wins, that puts them at 5-1, which gives them a little bit of a cushion over a team like Louisville, for instance, or Florida State. So that would be really nice. On the other hand, if they were to lose, if Virginia Tech was to lose, they'd fall to 4-2. That would put them behind Louisville right now. But Florida State and Pitt, Duke, Pitt and Duke could all pass Virginia Tech with a win. So it would be very interesting moving forward in there. But also with a Wake Forest win, they move to 1-4 in conference, which would actually bump them up 2 spots, passing Notre Dame and Boston College in the process. So it's definitely going to be interesting, to be short. I'm really excited to see this game. But the real question is today, what is GGB going to pick for this college basketball odds today? And that is the question. I think I'm going to lean with UCF over Houston. This is a huge game for UCF, and I understand the Northwestern point of things and everything. But the fact is, UCF's been playing not horribly. The Temple game was bad, but I believe more in the UCF players than I do in Northwestern at this point, considering the slump they're in, especially since they're going up against such high-tier competition in Iowa and Luka Garza. Anyways, this is GGB, Carlos Pepper saying adios amigos, and go Knights.